Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We have this week again part 2 of Dr. Gladys, our veterinarian, our CEO, our conservationist, who brings conservation with health. Conservation through public health. She has been generous with her time. She's doing this through bwindi, from bwindi, Impenetrable forest. We have talked about conservation through health as an organization. We have talked about gorilla conservation coffee, which is right on her t-shirt and where to find it. Where you buy also buy the coffee. Gladys, my friend, we want to talk about the success stories over these many years. Pioneer, only Ugandan woman doing this, working with wildlife over many years, traveling all these 20 different sites. Just pull out 1 or 2 success stories. When you look back, I know there are so many that you can share with our audience and go, while this happened, Oprah always says it's aha moment. You went, woo! This is something. This is why I do what I do.
I've had a few success stories, I guess I would say. I'll mention one with gorillas and one with other species. I remember one time a gorilla had a rectal prolapse and everybody was like, I think this gorilla, you just leave it because you're promoting bad genes in already endangered population. Don't intervene. But then the warden was like, please intervene.
It was
because the tourist had a rectal prolapse. The rectum had come out of the anus.
Oh my goodness.
And actually it happens in children, but this time around it came out and it really was the gorilla was going to die if I didn't do an operation. And so, but I was encouraged by the park warden. He said, no, you have to do it. The tourists are getting upset. So I went ahead and carried out the operation and she recovered. And then everybody was happy that I had done it. And because she was a female gorilla of 6 years old, we knew that she was going to go on to have 6 babies in her lifetime as a female. And so that's one time in my life I felt, okay, by doing this intervention, we are contributing to a population that at that time was only 300 in the world. And this is really going to help the mountain gorilla population to grow.
Wow.
And as I speak now, the numbers of mountain gorillas have almost doubled since I first started working with them. We started out when there were 300 in Bwindi. Now there's over 500, a minimum of 460 since the census 5 years ago. But we believe there are many more now. And it's really exciting that increased veterinary care, increased better community engagement, where community health is improving. So gorillas, as community health improves, gorillas are falling sick less often, community well-being is improving, they're better engaged in tourism. All of these interventions are enabling people to coexist with the gorillas. And I'm proud to have contributed to almost doubling our mountain gorilla population. And we hope that it can continue to grow. So that's one success story, which I'm very excited about.
Congratulations, that is huge. That is huge. I always talk to doctors, gynecologists, and they always tell you, I have birthed 4,000 babies. And when you live in a community, like here in Michigan, where you are a gynecologist and you've birthed 4,000 children, a day cannot pass when you don't see somebody you birthed and here they are. And for you to be able to save this gorilla from losing its uterus and everything to giving 6 babies that have multiplied. So now, since you've saved so many, please help us settle this argument that people always ask me about since I come from Kanungu. They go to Rwanda and they pay 1,500 to see gorillas, mountain gorillas. They come to Uganda, I think it's 500 now, 600.
700.
They always
about to be 800.
They always ask me, Jackson, are we seeing the same gorillas that have... or are the Rwanda gorillas fed different food and that's why we pay so much money? Are they the same gorillas moving around the forest or do they have their own species? I know that, but I want others to hear the answer.
They're exactly the same gorillas. And actually, hundreds of years ago, maybe 300 years or so, they were together. If you look at the map very, very, very clearly, and I have one in my book here, I don't know if it will show up on the webinar, but if you look at the map here, these are these two places at one point were connected.
Okay.
But because of road infrastructure and building up in the area, they separated. And that's why when they did the genetic studies, the DNA showed that they're exactly the same. So they're the same gorillas. It's just that the countries are different, they're marketing them differently. And I think Rwanda realized we can increase the price and people will still come.
Yes.
Whereas in Uganda, they're like, well, let's make gorilla tourism accessible to people who, to more people, because not everybody can afford to pay that much money to go to the gorillas. So I think it's leveling itself out, but they're exactly the same gorillas.
Encourage everybody watching to come to Uganda and watch the gorillas from Uganda side. Buy the book and buy conservation coffee, gorilla conservation coffee, and support our economy so even our pygmies who live on the outskirts can have survival. So you were mentored by mom, mentored by dad, have lots of people influences. Mondo Kagonyera came into conversation and many, many others we can't all name. But ladies and gentlemen, if you go to read the book, you'll find more names in there that Gladys mentioned that we didn't mention here. So for young people who are listening right now going, I love where this interview is going. I'm going to read the book. How can young people become more engaged in environmental activism and conservation efforts? What should they do? What steps should they be looking at?
I would say that young people can get more involved in environmental activism. You're never too young to become a conservationist. You're never too young. And for me, I got into it through setting up a wildlife club in Chibuli Secondary School.
Yes.
Now, Dr. Jane Goodall has Roots and Shoots programs for all young people all over the world. But even when I joined the Wildlife Authority, a number of people, including my immediate boss, Captain Otekat, he got into wildlife conservation by setting up a wildlife club in Makerere University. So everybody, wherever you are, you can get involved in conservation. Visit the park, read about the animals, visit the zoo, Uganda Wildlife Education Center, where Indigo did his volunteering. It's a very good place for young children to learn how to, look after animals. And the book has so much interesting information. It's also available on Amazon and in Aristoc in Kampala. It has a lot of interesting information about animals and anecdotes about all kinds of animals. But I can say that nobody is too young to conserve wildlife and protect the environment and do something that they can to protect the environment. And I have to say that we brought the Queen of Uganda here, the Nabagireka. She's our patron, the CTPH. Right. We celebrated 20 years of conservation through public health in November and December, and the Nabagireka came to Bwindi for the second time. She saw the gorillas the second time. And having a cultural leader like that would encourage more people in Uganda to visit, so they know that this is not just for people from another country, foreigners, expatriates. Us Ugandans have to embrace our heritage, visit our national parks, because that's the future. You can't just be relying on external tourists. And when we visit them, we'll become conservationists. We'll teach our children to become conservationists. And so we need to develop a culture of visiting our parks. In Kenya, Kenyans visit their national parks. Yes. They all do. There's a lot of domestic tourism. So do South Africans. Ugandans need to start doing the same. When you have money, don't only go on holiday to London and Dubai and America, but also visit your national parks. So this is something that I think is so important.
Tell them. I think actually I should talk to the member of parliament for Chinchiza East, where I come from, is Chris Valios. And Sam Kajojo, who is LC5. Maybe an idea just popped in my head. Maybe Bwindi, since it is located in Kanungu, Uganda Wildlife Authority can give a special price for people around the park to go see gorillas at a cheaper price than somebody who comes from northern Uganda. Encourage local people. Our school can take a whole bus for kids to get to learn about this. If the price is the same. No, I will talk to Chris Wariomunsi and Sam Kajojo. Elections are coming up. Everyone is trying to campaign. Maybe they should start taking more people to see.
Yes, actually, for Ugandans to visit gorillas, it's 250,000 shillings, which is between $70 to $80, depending on the rate. Still much less than it is for foreigners, but still too expensive for the local residents.
For
Yep.
a person, this is the challenge that the world usually don't see. I grew up in Kanungu. Being Impenetrable was there. I went to Chinchiz High School, which is less than an hour to get to the forest. I went to Perry University. I went to Columbia University in New York. I just finished a year at Harvard University. When I was in Uganda, I never thought going to see gorillas was something that, number one, I can afford or was interested in. Because we didn't have you, Ugandans, were hearing of Jane Goodall, who is doing the work. She's white. We don't identify with her. One of the things that really sparked me when you brought your son's book, this is a Ugandan young man who is inspired by his mother to write a children's book and put in gorillas and people who look like the people he's writing for. I've written 5 children's books. Maybe I should write one about gorillas too.
Very good. Congratulations.
5 books, because I want our people to read their own stories. So here is an appeal. You Kanungu young people, you are on Facebook, you are on Twitter, you're on Instagram, you are promoting Beyonce videos, you know what is happening in London with Kate Middleton, the princess, but you have your mentors in Dr. Gladys sitting right there in the bwindi. You have a conservation right there. Go, please, visit, learn, get mentored. Instead of trying to aspire everyone in the whole class to be a doctor when you cannot pass basic science, you can go learn. So in that regard, now that the youth have heard me, how do you recruit your staff? I loved the picture you posted and which is still on your profile, on your WhatsApp, of all these women who are involved in your work and their names, the Stellas, then you. How do you recruit workers? I know some of them start as porters, but every time I've gone to hike the gorillas 8 times, I've only encountered male porters. How do we increase female porters? And how do we get, maybe here somebody who is interested in funding a conservation, a woman out there who can help us train more women conservationists in the area. Dr. Gladys told you, we invest in a woman, we have invested in the community. I do that every time. Dr. 1,000 women who are in Kanungu, Kunji, and Rwanda, some right in the outskirts of Bwindi, who need to start a conservation group. I will get the grandmothers at Mukono Church, and the ones right there in Bwindi, 1 to come to the one tomorrow, 2 to start their own conservation group. But
that would be fantastic.
Please share with the audience how you go about recruiting, how hard or easy it is to get people to commit to work in this unique setting and addressing a unique situation that they are not used to.
Yes. Recruiting is not all that straightforward, but we try our best to progressively, when you start an organization, people start as volunteers a lot of the time. Then when you get the money, you hire them as full-time staff. And so some of our staff have come through the volunteer route. If they've proven to be highly motivated, those tend to be actually our best staff. But then others, we're lucky, we recruit people who are really good hires. I mean, they're passionate about what we're doing in whatever field they are. Not only conservation, they could be accountants, they could be good at marketing, grant writing, and we end up recruiting them as well. And so it's different ways of recruiting. I would say that I'm glad you love the profile photo. We did on Women's Day, International Women's Day. Our team is over 35 now, like about 36 in the team, and about 1/3 are women. Ideally, we should have more than that, but it's still a very male-dominated profession because we are working in remote locations where women don't typically work. And some of our work we're doing is very physically demanding. But I'm happy that right now we have a vet who's a woman. She's just graduated from Makerere. And she's up here to climb the hills, sit on a motorcycle, go to treat animals, people's goats, climb the hills, go to treat gorillas, check on gorillas with the male technicians as well. And so I'm glad to have inspired both women and men to get involved in wildlife. In Makerere, I know I inspired many vet students to follow a career path of wildlife veterinary medicine as well. But when I started out, there were no female rangers at all. Actually, in my book, I write about, having to chase a gorilla, and it was only men around me. But then a woman from the community came to pick me up barefooted. She grabbed hold of my hand, and we walked up the hill. We could barely talk to each other because she barely knew English, and I barely knew Ruchiga. But I was energized by her because I saw it's a woman coming to collect me after chasing after this gorilla for 4 hours, and eventually went into the forest, having scratched somebody, and we had to herd him back. And, we wanted to translocate him elsewhere, but he got so scared and the anesthetic wasn't enough because he was semi-wild, and he ended up in the forest where he needed to be. He never came out again. But then I met her 20 years later during the pandemic, because I started telling the people in Nkuringo sector near Kisoro, that in Kisoro district, I told them, even if we don't have tourists right now, don't poach. Because I remember the first time I came to your area in Nkuringo, there was no hotel. The warden called me and said, come and translocate this gorilla. He scratched people. And we went with 2 vets from Rwanda. One was British vet, one was Rwandese. And we went to see what we can do. We get there and we had to sleep in a school. There was no hotel. We slept in Teko Primary School, and that night it rained. That's when we knew the school had a leaking roof because we were rained on in our sleeping bags.
Oh my God.
Before we could go out the next day to treat the gorilla, to try and get the gorilla, translocated and everything. And so I told them this place had no hotels when I came here. But now you're having hotels. You have at least 10, 20 hotels in the area because of gorillas.
Yes.
So the tourists will come back. Their gorillas are helping to lift you out of poverty. Please don't poach gorillas. And I actually asked them that there's a certain lady who came and, helped me out. I said, does anyone remember that time when we came? And one man put up his hand and said, yes, I was there. I said, really? He said, yes. And in fact, the vet doctor you came with, the Muzungu vet doctor, he wanted a mattress for this gorilla, because in that society, people use stretchers when people are sick. Yes. They carry them over steep hills to the doctor. But what amused them is that we insisted on a mattress for the silverback gorilla. So they went and found a mattress to carry him. In the end, we didn't carry him.
The mattress in the angles.
In the stretcher. And they told them to create a bigger stretcher than usual because it's a big silverback gorilla. And so then I told them, and who remembers this lady who collected me? He said, I'll take you to see her. So we went to visit Peace. She was so happy to see me. And I asked her, she actually brought out Bushera. She went and got Bushera. And she said, you have to drink this Bushera. So I was with my children, she was with her children, we introduced each other and my team. And I said to her, why did you come and collect me? She said, because I had never seen a woman going down there to look after gorillas. And they all knew that I was a city girl from Kampala. So they were saying, is she even going to make it down there? So they were so impressed that I made it down there. And this lady said, I had to come and help her. When I heard she was very tired, she was finding it difficult to climb the hills, and we had run out of water. I said, let me go and take her water and bring her up the hill, because she's a fellow woman like me. And I also told her, she gave me a lot of energy. So now we're seeing more and more women. You said you haven't seen women porters. Now women are beginning to be porters. They're beginning to be rangers. They'll carry a gun. They'll lead tourists to gorillas. They'll even all over the parks now, you have women in law enforcement. Things have changed, but seeing people out there going to the gorillas and thinking, oh, she's a woman, nothing has happened to her. I think it kind of changed society norms and perceptions of what women can and cannot do. So we're excited that many more women are now in the field and following their dreams of being out in the wild, protecting wildlife.
So somebody's going to watch this episode and go, this doctor is very busy. How do you relax? What do you do for relaxation? What are your hobbies? People always ask me that question. I play soccer, football, which your son loves. I run and jog and go to the gym to relax my mind, because when I'm there, I'm not thinking about Nyaka, the grandmothers, the work I do. What does Dr. Gladys do for relaxation?
For relaxation, I'm learning to relax. My husband's trying to get me to learn how to relax. But one thing I do is I love swimming.
Okay.
It's very interesting, but I actually love swimming a lot. In fact, I wondered where I got into swimming. But one time I read in the newspaper that my great-grandfather was a fisherman. And how did I learn from it? Because my mom's dad was Katikiro Nsibira, Martin Luther Nsibira, who actually lost his life because he convinced people to sell their land. He was the first one to sell his land, convinced them to sell their land to create what became Makerere University, used to be University of East Africa. So he was shot at Namirimbe Cathedral by the people the landowners paid somebody. But fortunately, by the time he was shot, he had already signed that bill as Katikiro, that time Prime Minister of Uganda. And so when they keep bringing up stories about him, because now Northcote was named Nsibira Hall after, when some things happened. And one of them said his father was a fisherman. I said, maybe that's why I like swimming. From Sese Islands, we have to look back into your past. But I really enjoy swimming. I relax a lot swimming. I also enjoy reading. I really enjoy reading. I like reading true stories, inspiring biographies, self-motivation books. I really love reading as well. And so I think because I love reading, it was easier for me to write. And I'm sure, Jackson, you also love reading. So it was easier for you to write all those books. Because if you love reading, I get lost in a book. And I feel I'm a bit sad that a lot of young people today don't like reading anymore because of all these gadgets. When we grew up, you never had 24-hour TV, maybe in the evening. There's just one program on Uganda TV or something, but one channel. But now everywhere, it's just gadgets. Children are not reading anymore. We have to find creative ways to make them read because they're missing out on life so much. They're missing out on becoming creative because they're just depending on what comes at them. And so, reading is something that I'm really passionate about. And and I'm so glad that you've written all those books. Having Ugandan role models, it's very important. There's somebody I know actually who called Oscar. You may want to interview him at one point, but he's the one who used to do these cartoons in, I think it was Monitor, that these ones of he used to do cartoons in the newspaper, but he is also big into reading and he wants to make reading accessible to children deep in the rural areas. So each of them takes a book home. So he's managing to create these soft copy books. Like he gets a book like Indigo's, makes it soft copy, so it's much cheaper. And they can take because he says if they just see it in the school library, they won't become readers. But if they can take it home, they will. So he sells them for 3,000 shillings. It's such a social enterprise. He's making money from it because if he prints enough, he still makes money. But he feels all the children should be readers. So he's currently done a book about my mother. And actually, this is a new advert for her. It's called The Lioness of Budo. It's going to come out in, hopefully this year, maybe in May. And basically, officially, It's still being in its final stages. And he's looking for role models who people can relate to. You know, he condenses it to a 100-page book, mainly for teenagers, children in high school, so they can read it and relate to role models in their society, instead of picking up a book of a role model in another country that they can't relate to. And in that way, it gets children to read and also to aspire through
What's his
local role
last name?
models.
Oscar who?
He's called Oscar Ranzo.
Ranzo. Please get us in
Yes.
touch with him. And your mom's book is called
He's written a book called The Lioness of Budo.
Lioness. Ooh,
Because she was one of the first girls to go to Budo when it became a co-educational school.
What we can
In the
do,
1930s.
we can do a whole episode about your mom, about your dad.
Yes.
Also wanted to bring up the Sibigwa Hall at Makerere University. When I was at Makerere University, I lived in Livingston Hall. So I was
Okay.
Northcote, but I went back to visit and had been named Sibigwa. And while I was doing research for this interview, I found out that's your maternal grandpa. So
Yes.
you come from a strong family. Please do get me in touch with Oscar, and we
I
can
will.
have a conversation, but also get as many books. I will give him all my 5 books to reprint
Yes.
and all over the country. And now
He will be so happy.
Yeah,
I think you and him will reconnect. You and him will really connect.
if we can send every book to as many schools, including the ones that still have leaking roofs, these kids
Exactly.
amazing. Now our young people are on TikTok and following this. Maybe something else we can do as authors is to have our books in small segments on TikTok, find them where they are.
Exactly.
Technology is great, but there is also, it's a tool. If poorly used, when people do not read and just think they're going to get opinions of people on social media, bad. But when they have gone and used that social media, I'm sure you know that TikTok is in the Senate here in the United States to be banned because there is all this influence that the country cannot control. But we need to encourage our people to read. There is nothing like a book. My side beds are, I read 5 books at the same time.
Same here. I thought I was the only one with that problem. I haven't finished this one. I pick up another one. And I'm like,
And I will
okay.
finish them. So when you go back to Kampala, Gladys, I will get somebody to bring you at least 2 of my adult books. And the
I would love
schools near you in Bwindi who are in conservation can get my children books, and we will publish more books.
that
Before
would be so good. We actually have one of my staff, the camp manager, Lona de Renatwe. He knows you very well. He knew one of your books. And we're also engaging about 20 schools around Bwindi. So it would be great to make sure they get your books. We also need to get them to get Indigo's book in school. Some of them are really interested. I've given them like a hard copy in the school, but they need to get the soft copies, you know? So we need to also team up with Oscar as well to make these books available to the last mile user, as they call them.
I always say books are toys. And when I get schools to take my books, I tell them the next time I see that book, I want it dirty, I want it torn apart, then I can give you another one. I don't want it to go on the shelf and it's all crisp, nobody's reading it. So let's use them as toys.
Yes.
Before we even wrap up this, is there something you want to talk about that I didn't ask you about?
Yes, maybe I'll talk about how we work with we have over 500 community volunteers in the Bwindi community who we work with. Could you believe it? Yes. And half of them are women. We call them village health and conservation teams, or actually community health workers who are doing conservation work. And they are transforming their communities, you know, and it's just so exciting. It's better, they are more likely to change their communities than somebody coming from even Kampala, let alone abroad. And it's just been great. A lot of them, we got them to adopt family planning, you know, they're taking contraceptives, they're much happier, the women are more liberated because they can have control over their bodies. They don't have to have a baby every year. they can open a shop, they can start a business. One of our best testimonies is a woman who had 3 girls, and she stopped looking for a boy when our village health and conservation teams told her about, the importance, the benefits and methods of family planning. And it's couple peer education. So also the men, it's about balancing the family budget so they can reduce poverty in their home. And so it's something they do together and they plan together. And that's something we're just so excited about. We call it, we'd use a population health environment approach around the park. And it's just so nice knowing that our own people are their biggest assets. You don't have to wait for people to coming abroad to tell you what to do. You can actually do it yourself. You can transform your own communities. Doesn't matter where you are, where you've come from. And you're a wonderful example, Jackson, of somebody who said, I am going to transform my community and my fellow Ugandans to really be leaders. And that's what we need to do. In fact, not just Ugandans, but Africans in general. The African continent needs more and more people like that, because we are the ones who are going to protect and save our nature. I'm the vice president of African Primate Society, which we founded in 2016. And my fellow founder members are from West Africa and other parts of Africa. So the president is from Ivory Coast. I'm the vice president. Dr. Inza Kone, then there's me from Uganda. And we're trying to build African leadership in primate research and conservation. Because what he realized all over Africa, what we realized is we have had people coming from other countries to tell us to protect primates and bringing in money, but the numbers of primates are going down. Apart from the mountain gorillas, because the mountain gorillas are now owned by the local people, by the Ugandans, the Rwandese. They're actually contributing directly largely to the gross development product, to the GDP. And they're part of us. Everyone knows gorillas are our future. But all the others, the numbers are going down because there isn't enough leadership. But if people can grow in their profession, they can present papers, go outside and present papers, they become confident and they stick to the organizations they're in. They don't leave them to go and do something else. And those same people are going to become members of parliament, whether you like it or not.
Yes.
If they're meant to be. And why not have members of parliament who make good decisions to help the country? And they could be, instead of having members of parliament saying, we cut down trees to plant sugarcane, they're saying, no, Bugoma Forest cannot go. There's no way Bugoma Forest can go because there's chimpanzees and other important primates. We can't cut down trees to plant sugarcane. It's affecting the climate. It's coming so dry now and hot. You need enough people in parliament who can make good decisions by building African leadership in primate research and conservation. So it's very exciting. We have people from Nigeria, Cameroon, South Africa, all of us out there. We had the second conference in Uganda in 2019. 85% of delegates presenting papers were African. Normally, it's 10%. You travel abroad anywhere. I've even given a keynote talk, so has Dr. Inza, but we're only 5%, 5 to 10% were from where the wildlife is from. And so now we reverse that trend with the African Primate Society, where 80 to 85% are from where the wildlife is from. And that's the future. So we're building a homegrown movement of primatologists who are there to protect their wildlife. Even if he becomes a minister, or he will always make the right decision. A member of parliament, we need to protect our wildlife. And that's something that we've realized is important all over.
That is perfect. People who are closer to the issue, localizing leadership. I'm working on an article right now to go in Stanford Innovation Review on localizing funding to the people who live and work within the areas where the issue is. People go and do maternal health in South Africa, but they are coming from UK. After doing 1 week of work, they fly back into their comfortable homes. The women are still having the same issues. They don't have a say. This is just one of the many examples. So founders, in fact, we need to get a group of all African-based, born, raised founders who are running these organizations to contributing to this local funding, but also encourage our people. We have so many wealthy people also who are from the continent of Africa, born and raised, who need to support these causes. But also what I even so much admire about the work you have done is also to establish a social impact venture. Our people have spending powers. In fact, when you are going back, if you don't fly and drive through Kambuga, Nyaka has opened a microfinance bank led by
fantastic.
and those 500 women you have are community workers. I can bet you some of Nyaka grandmothers are within that group. And that brings collaboration part. We, as we also try to encourage the funding communities around the world to come and look at our work, we also need to collaborate. If our women who are already being economically empowered, being taught on family planning from Nyaka side, and you are doing this family planning from your conservation point of view, those women need one collaboration and represent others and train others to continue the circle growing bigger and bigger. So we got something to collaborate on. We have to get that conservation clubs, and we have get students to come and visit. I can bet you I have 120 employees in Uganda. Maybe 3 of them have been to bwindi. So here
that's fun. We need to get more of them to bwindi.
Exactly. You need to go bwindi before they go to Queen Elizabeth, which is a father, or other Depot National Park. So last question I'm going to ask you, which you've already covered, but that's the last question I ask every person who's been on here. If you give yourself advice when you were 18 years of age, what advice would that be? You have sons, I have sons and daughters. Majority of the listeners on this channel are actually younger people. Ask that question, Gladys. Many of them look at you and they look at me and say, no, God created these people and dropped them in the world to do what they do. They don't know the challenges, they don't know the success stories, they don't know where we came from, just following the passion. And so every visitor gives this advice. What would you give advice to yourself when you're 18? So 18-year-olds don't have to wait until they are retired to start doing conservation, until they are retired to start getting involved in community work, or wait for somebody to come from a different country to start something in their community they can start now. So I'll keep quiet and let you advise our young people. Advise yourself 18 years of age.
I love the way you've stated it. I would say, when you're 18, when I was 18, I would say maybe I was quite rebellious. And I remember my mom telling me at one point, you're so rebellious, but if you put but you're a very determined person. Yeah. But if you put it in the right direction, you will accomplish so much in life. And I think I would like to say that when you're a young person, follow your passion, follow your purpose, find something that is very meaningful in life, and don't be always following, of course you want to go and hang out with your friends and get distracted. It's so easy to get distracted, and it's so easy to follow the crowd and not follow what you really want to do. Even if it's unique and different from what everybody else wants to do, don't lose sight of it, stick to it, and you actually get people following you in the end. Because actually now a lot of my high school mates, they're so excited. They're like, you've always liked animals. Oh, no wonder you're doing what you're doing. And they're so excited about it because they always used to see it.
Yes.
And they're glad that I followed my career. I didn't go for the standard careers because I wanted to follow the crowd. It's better to really follow what you are good at and what you feel that you should be doing. Follow your passion and your purpose. Remember, my son, he's currently now in Northwood School in America, where my husband went 30 years ago when his mom worked for the UN. And he got a scholarship. He's there for a few months before he starts university. And one thing that I can say is that he, Indigo, when he got there, because he joined the soccer academy, which they call it postgraduate before you go to university, but you finish high school. And they said, because he's going to stay here for a short time, his coaches told me, we want him to give a talk about Uganda and his life. And he said to me, Mama, I don't want to give this talk. I said, why not? He said, because my friends will think I'm strange. And I said, no, they're not really. How are they really your friends yet? You've just met them. Yeah. And I said, and you've had a unique life and your teachers have not recognized it. And they did it also because they wanted people to get to know him. So we worked with him. We helped him to come through his coach. I said, you have to follow your path. So his coaches coached him. I coached him. My husband coached him. And when he gave the presentation, he was so happy. He said, Mama, I got a standing ovation. People were so excited. And he became confident. And then he spoke at the primary school. This time they paid him. And he talks about Uganda and he made everybody laugh. And I'm like, okay, he's been watching his parents talking, but he just opened up and his personality came out. And I think people should follow their passion. You know, he talked about the food we eat, how people dress, the wildlife, how he wrote his book, and all kinds of things. But he made people laugh. He said, there's one food I've not put on this slide. And they said, when he talked about foods of Uganda, matoke and all that. And he said, some of you will run away. Grasshoppers is my favorite food. They all laughed.
At least he didn't do the nswa.
Yes, the nswa as well. And everybody laughed. But it's been good. Yeah, and he's come out of his shell. And I think, you know, he's now 19. People who are 18, 19, they're so concerned about what everyone else is thinking. Exactly. That they sometimes miss their calling. They miss their passion and their purpose. And I think at that age, it's a very sensitive age, but it's also a very pivotal age in your life where that's around the time that people really start to think about their life's purpose. And they should be encouraged to follow it and not follow the crowd.
Wonderful. Well, that really, really summarizes it. Thank you for raising superstars. Ladies and gentlemen, we have had 2 episodes of Dr. Gladys Kalema-Zikusoka. Published author, mother. The mother is a published author. She is a published author. The son is a published author. This is a house of publishers. So buy the books, read the books, follow the links. We'll put the website of the organization also. Make a donation. Go visit. Get involved. This is our country. This is our work. This is our environment. And to have the doctor who is conserving, but also treating our gorillas and animals to stay healthy in their environment, mentoring, working with volunteers, more than 500 women, making sure that our mountain gorillas and silverbacks who are still paternalistic in nature are continuing to grow. More than 500 gorillas in Uganda that go to Rwanda. Thank you for sparing time. Thank you for coming here. May God bless you and bless the hands of your work. Bless your boys and your husband and the entire family. Go get the books, follow the website. Thank you for watching, share, subscribe, and let's continue to make this world a better place, better than we found it. Appreciate you, Gladys. Thank you for sparing time today.
Thank you so much, Jackson. It's been wonderful speaking, and I hope you come out and see our work in a different context. You stay at our gorilla conservation camp, see our work, and bring the people from Nyaka community with you as well. That would be fantastic.
July 2024, book our room.
Yes.
Right. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We're very Mnonga.